Hey, Vandy is now a top 40 program. Let that sink in.
You are Locked On Vandy, your daily podcast on the Vanderbilt Commodores, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yo, welcome into the Locked On Vandy podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks for joining. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube as part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Now, this is exciting, okay? And I know we're in rare air for this Vandy program because it's been a while since it's been good. But we're going to break down the final USA Today rankings. The SEC did well, as did Vandy, and Vandy came in at number 40. So that's after last year. Could you imagine Vandy being a top 40 program at 7-6? I know I didn't. When I started this show, I was like, yeah, I'm probably going to be doing a coaching search about this time next year. This was this time last year, so I thought I would have been doing a coaching search about a month ago, and I'm not. It's probably been the most stable this program's been in a while. So this is good stuff, man. And here's kind of how it all shook out. And this is exciting because Vandy finishes top 10. Not top 10. They didn't finish top 10, but they finished top 40. So how the rest? Here's the rest of the SEC, and the red dots mean that they're on Vandy's 2025 schedule, and some notables. So Vandy finished number 40. Ahead of them, honestly, Texas and Georgia, that should be flipped because Georgia beat Texas twice, once on the road, once on a neutral field. I don't buy that. All right, Tennessee, Ole Miss, I think that should be flipped. Ole Miss is better than Tennessee. Alabama, South Carolina, Missouri, LSU. I think that's about right. A&M, Florida, Arkansas. Florida had a really nice run at the end of the season to get to 8-5. Impressive show where they were ready. They were ready to fire Billy Napier. I think even Billy Napier expected it. And then Vandy at 40, Oklahoma, Auburn, Kentucky, and Mississippi State. Mississippi State finishing in the 100s, 110, about where Vandy was last year. I don't know the exact number, but probably in that ballpark. So this is pretty impressive. Like, you look at how, and to all the Big Ten people out there, they're like, oh, Big Ten, Big Ten, Big Ten, Big Ten. Like, this is a pretty top heavy league. I mean, you have 13 teams in the top 65, 14 in the top, or you have 15 of your 16 teams in the top 90, which, you have two teams with losing records, 3 teams with losing records. And, it is what it is. There's going to be teams in every league that have losing records, but there's not that many of them in this league. And this is where this league is very, very deep. Now, I know that it improved and come out to fruition in the bowl season. I think some of the matchups just kind of, they weren't great matchups. Like for South Carolina against Illinois, like that's probably the worst team they could have played because of the styles of play. Like that's what South Carolina's worst at is Illinois' style of play. That just, the barge formation where you have 9 people on the line of scrimmage, like that's tough to defend, right? I don't care who you are. Bielema is in the perfect spot there at Illinois. But this list is really good, and I'm impressed that Vandy's there. And then, of course, Virginia Tech at 66, Utah State 111, Georgia State 121. Don't love that because that was a loss on Vandy's schedule last year. Don't love that. And then, of course, just for funsy, New Mexico State at 124 because that's, Vandy took pretty much their entire program and left them to be decimated. So this is, like I said, this is a very interesting list. Vandy being in the top 40, I think, tells you the direction of the program. And I think it's only getting better. And Clark Lee's been able to use that as, hey, we're not where we want to be yet, but we are absolutely growing. And when it comes to NIL and when it comes to things that they need to stay there or to get better, I think that helps him. I think that gives him more ammo because you're able to now recruit. You're now able to even get guys to stay from your own roster. I mean, I know I think they had 12 commits or 12 portal guys, I think. But a lot of those guys were some of those guys were just down the line guys that weren't going to play, that needed opportunity, and I don't blame them. But like the mass exodus they had a year ago versus now is totally different. They've had guys that, obviously moved on because they're out of eligibility. You had one guy declare for the draft who could have came back but wasn't expected to because the Pavia rule. He got granted extra year of eligibility but chose not to take it and decided to get in the NFL. But as an offensive lineman, as a guard, you have a limited shelf life. Why not, right? Because as a guard, unless you're just elite, like best of the best, tip of the sword type thing, you're not getting drafted very high. You're going to be day 2 at best as a guard. That's just the nature of that position. So go in there. It doesn't matter where guards are drafted. If you're good, you're going to play in the NFL. So I don't blame Hubbard one bit. I don't think he can improve his draft stock. He can only hurt it by getting injured. So why not take advantage of it now? Take your shot. Go do your thing, man. I don't blame you one bit. So, but how do they stay there or get better? How does this happen? Okay. Now you've got this accolade now. Okay. And you've got to figure out different ways to use it. Okay? You've got this top 40 accolade. You've got this ability to say that in your recruiting pitch. Hey, we're a top 40 program. We're continuing to get better. We have continuity. And we have guys, we have a roster that's built to sustain, and we have a culture that's built to sustain our roster. People do not want to leave. I guarantee you Brandon Fontenette got offers. I guarantee you A&M probably called him. Other SEC teams probably called him. I bet some Big Ten teams probably called him. I think there was some money offered there too. But Brandon Fontenette decided to stay. I think there's more than just NIL that's keeping these guys around. And that's kind of what I'm getting at here. There's a culture here. Now you got to take advantage of it, right? I think it's all for naught if you go out there and lay a 2-10 egg, which I think a lot of people are in show me mode with Vandy. I think people, if you look at the projections, if you look at like the top 10 projected quarterbacks from CBS Sports, Diego Pavia is number 9, even though he's better than 4 of the guys ahead of him. I think it's the skepticism of Vandy. Like people don't trust Vandy. I don't blame them, but they don't trust Vandy to do that. They don't trust them to be good year in and year out. I don't think anybody ever expects national championships. I know that's, what Diego Pavia has put out there in the world. Like they're wanting, they're aspiring to be a playoff team and all that stuff. But like, I think if Vandy follows it up with another 7-6, I think that's kind of your floor now. Whereas last year, I think your floor was 4 wins to keep, to kind of keep on. And this year, I think you have to match your record. I think you have to go 7-6. You win your bowl game, right? To kind of keep this thing going. I think if you go 5-7 and miss the bowl after this past year with NIL now kicking in more, you have a lot more excitement around the program, and you go out there and you come out flat. I think that's that's going to be the kind of the death nail for Clark Lea's head coaching tenure at Vandy. So I don't anticipate that happening because I think there's too many positive things in place right now. But they have to find a way to develop a passing game with Pavia. I think he's right there. He's very close to being a really good passer. There's some things he does really well. And if I ever get a chance to talk to Diego Pavia, I want to ask him about that 4th-and-1 shot play to Junior Sherrill against Alabama. It was a play action, probably one of the ballsiest calls I've ever seen. I want to ask him about that. So you have to find a passing game. I think you have to have a more balanced offense. And when I say balance, I'm not saying 50% run, 50% pass. That's not my definition of balance. As a coach, my definition of balance is you need to find equal share for your playmakers. And then once you find that equal share, then you start to say, okay, well, Eli Stowers, there's a, you adjust your percentages based on that, but you want to try to get as close to an equal share of ability to get the ball in the hands of everybody on the field. Because if I'm a wide receiver and I'm just out there doing cardio, like that does nothing for me. That does nothing for the team. That does nothing to help anything. And That's problematic. So I think they have to find guys that have roles. And that's the key. You have to, in order to get these guys involved, you have to be creative in the roles that you carve out, because not everybody's going to be the alpha down the field, stretch the field vertical guy. Not everybody's going to be the jet sweep guy. Not everybody's going to be the primary RPO guy. You have to find roles for people. All right. Well, if you get on the field because you block well and you happen to catch a couple, like if you make 3 catches for 25 yards, but you spring 3 big chunk runs because of your block, that's productive, right? That's part of achieving balance. Like you play to the maximum capacity and maximum capability of whatever role is defined for you. That's balance. They need to achieve that. Defensively, they need to achieve balance. They need to find a way to be more effective with the down guys so that they don't have to blitz linebackers all the time and leave a canyon of space in the intermediate middle of the field. Like I think that's where they got in trouble, because they just had to blitz so much. I think they had to be overly aggressive to make up for their lack of depth, their lack of size, or whatever discrepancies they had against their schedule. I think if they can find ways around that, which I think they're heading in that right direction, that's something they need to be able to do. They need to be able to let their linebackers play in space instead of coming downhill on blitzes. So that's kind of where I'm at there. But I thought the SEC did well, and I think Vandy has a really good chance of being able to stay there. Let's continue this. Let's continue this right after this. Hey, we're presented by TalkSPACE. Yeah, that's right. TalkSPACE. Therapy is a game changer. It can help manage stress. It can help improve sleep and communicate more effectively. But finding the right therapist and fitting sessions into a busy schedule can be a challenge, right? TalkSPACE is the leading therapy provider. It makes getting the help you need easy, accessible, and affordable. Think about it. Like if you're in a tough spot and you need a licensed therapist, you can, it's right there. And with TalkSPACE, signing up is simple. You match with a licensed therapist who fits your needs, usually within 48 hours. It's convenient, and you can have sessions from the comfort of your home, even message your therapist between appointments. Plus, TalkSPACE is covered by many insurance plans, and for most insured members, there's a $0 copay. It's never been easier to prioritize mental health. As a listener of this podcast, you'll get $80 off your first month with TalkSPACE when you go to TalkSpace.com/LockedOnCollege and enter promo code SPACE80. That's space 80. To match with a licensed therapist today, do this. Go to TalkSpace.com/LockedOnCollege and enter promo code SPACE80 to get $80 off your first month and show your support for the show. That's TalkSpace.com/LockedOnCollege. Promo code SPACE80. And speaking of health, mental health is not the only important thing, but supporting your nervous system and supporting your bones and your joints is also paramount to, I think that also feeds into your mental stress and mental health. Because if you're feeling bad, you're probably going to feel bad mentally too. So the Joint Chiropractic is the place to go. 900 locations. They have a plan for you. They evaluate, so it's completely customizable to you. Dr. Nolan at the Bellevue location takes great care of me. I'm due. I haven't been back in quite some time, and I need to go back, but the things just been kind of hectic. But 900 locations. Go to the one nearest you. Joint Chiropractic. Get it done. Prioritize not just your mental health, but prioritize your joint and your nervous system health. You'll thank me later. All right. Thanks for making Locked On Vandy your first listen. I appreciate you guys. Thank you to the everydayers too. Shout out. If you need a second listen, Locked On SEC is the first place to go. And everybody comes together every Thursday for the squad show. We squad up. So if you want to get a preview of what the other SEC hosts are like, and let's say you want to follow Vandy's schedule and say, okay, well, I'm going to listen to Locked On LSU. Okay, I'm going to listen to Locked On Texas, or so on and so forth. The squad show is a great place to preview that. And so that's a good place to go. The squad shows post to this account too, but Locked On SEC is the way to go. It's a lot of fun. But Locked On Ole Miss as well. Stephen Willis does a phenomenal job there, so you should check him out too while you're at it. I'm sure you have a friend if you live in Nashville, I'm sure you have a friend that's an Ole Miss fan, so you can share that with them. But anyway, Vandy being a top 40 program, that's just, I don't want to say odd, that's not the right word, but it's just new. It hadn't happened in a while. And I think I think everybody's kind of skeptical about kind of how to handle that. It's like, okay, we have this really good quarterback, but what's the expectation here? Like, what are we, and you can leave this in what are your expectations? Like, to define 2025 as a successful season, what is your definition of success? How do you define success? How do you think Candace Story-Lee and the decision makers are going to define success? Because this is important. Because NIL, they're finally investing. They're investing in basketball, and basketball they're starting to come together a little bit, right? Football is starting to come together a little bit. They're starting to figure some things out. They need to take that next step. To me, I think 8 wins. Because 8 wins was there last year. You beat Georgia State. You beat Missouri. You got 8 wins. Or actually, you just beat Georgia State and you got 8 wins. You're 8-5. Okay, because you finished 7-5 and then you beat Georgia Tech in the bowl game, or you would have gotten matched up. It would have been a different matchup, but probably likely an easier matchup. But I think 8 wins. I think 8 wins is your expectation, and anything better is cake, right? I think you said it right there at 8 wins, because I think for right now, I just think with the toughness of the schedule, the fact that they're still trying to figure some things out, I think they're kind of in year 2. But with Diego Pavia, that's maybe a little bit accelerated. I think 9 wins was possible a year ago. Like a 9-4 record. You beat Missouri. I don't know. I think it's 8 or 9 wins. I think you're sitting right there, including that's including the bowl win, right? So you go 8-4 in the regular season, you win your bowl game. I think I could define that season as success. And I think too many people want to jump to playoff or bust to define success, right? But I think you've got in the college football world, if you're not spending $30 million on your roster like some team up north did, or Georgia does, or Texas, or Oregon, if you're not spending that kind of money on your roster, I think you have to put everything into perspective. I think you have to have some relativity behind this, behind your expectations. Because if you take a team like Vandy, who's still building, everything is still under construction. I think the stadium's going to be finally ready, so that's cool. But I think as far as your program structure, I think a lot of stuff is still being built. I think your foundation is there, which is good. I think there's a lot of things. I think there's a lot of pieces in this program that are going to be rock solid for many years to come. I don't anticipate Jerry Kill leaving, except for maybe retiring, because he could do that. I don't anticipate Tim Beck going anywhere. I think he's a really good coach, but I just think he's kind of at the end of his run of being a head coach. Being a head coach in college football is getting younger by the year. So I just don't know that Tim Beck is at that point in his career, which is fine. He's a great offensive coordinator. He's been a really good offensive coordinator. He fits really well at Vandy. I think there's going to be a lot of staff continuity. I think there's a lot of guys that like being here. Some guys are going to get promotions elsewhere. That's just kind of the nature of college football. But you hope that your analyst, or you hope that your connections and things, people move in, and and you get somebody that's comparable. So I think you've got a really good training program. I think your facilities are slowly but surely starting to catch up, and you're in a position to where you build it up to where now you have kind of a pipeline. You start to recruit Nashville better. I think as some of these local kids start to see the local product as being better, maybe, hey, that helped very briefly, with Juwan Williams' class. I think they had a really good class that year. Like that kind of thing helps, like when your team is pretty good and like some of these bigger name guys are like, hey, I can just come in and help. Like I can stay here. My folks, my friends and family can watch my games, and I can come here and start right away and make an impact. And so you look at that and say, well, that's something you could take advantage of. That's something that, as you continue to build portal stuff, that's something you can, like NIL starts to see, like the collectives, Anchor Impact, start to see that. Like, hey, okay, well, Clark Lee, he's bringing in some studs. Like, this guy's legitimately interested. Like Aaron Bryant, I think is going to be really good on the defensive line. He was in a very deep defensive line room for Texas and just couldn't quite crack the lineup. But like guys like that, guys like Chance Fitzgerald, Trent Hudson. I wish this were true for Jeremiah Dillon. I think he still has a lot of talent, very smooth, but for some reason, it's just not clicking with him. I don't know what it is, but it's just not clicking with him. I'm hoping it's going to click with some other guys, or maybe it'll click with Jeremiah Dillon this year. Who knows? Like that's a possibility. But there's some guys there to compete with. Maybe that'll push him a little bit. I don't know. There's a little bit more competition in that room, so that's exciting. But I think if you can put an exciting product on the field, I think you can attract fans. And when you attract fans, you start to create an environment on game days that starts to be more comparable to the SEC, whereas you have home fans, right? You have home fans. Like that's a novel concept for Vandy. That would be on Vandy's bucket list, right? To have home crowd. That's a simple ask, but the crowd, rightfully so, probably has not had much to watch except for this year. And they started trickling in. And I think as you get better, that will grow. And that'll be interesting to see what effect that has. And that's going to be something like if Vandy can continuously be a top 40 program and just kind of fluctuate within those rankings, I think eventually they can just inch, and they can start to become the conversation. Because with NIL, a city like Nashville can help you equalize. And that's a big deal because like you have Mississippi State, who's never going to be good because Starkville's not an NIL thing. Kentucky, they spend all their NIL money on basketball, so they're not going to be good. Arkansas is an Ole Miss farm team. Ole Miss has got some NIL cheese somewhere. I don't know where they're getting it from, but they're crushing it with NIL. A&M is an oil rig that just spits out money, so they're going to get recruits. But it's just the sustainability at the top is I think with your market that gives you a chance. So you just got to capitalize on all this stuff and capitalizing against your schedule, against teams that could be in better or worse situations we don't quite know yet. But we'll talk about that next. All right, game time. Attending NFL playoff games is an experience like no other, especially if you were in Philly for that snow game. The energy, the excitement, and the connection with other fans are unmatched. I remember the thrill of seeing my favorite team clinch a playoff win live. It's a memory I'll never forget. This year, Game Time makes it even easier to create those unforgettable moments with their new feature, Game Time Picks. It filters out the fluff and shows you only the best deals on great seats, so you can focus on what matters, being there. I use Game Time Picks to grab tickets for upcoming playoff games, and it couldn't have been easier. I found a super deal that gave me incredible value for amazing seats, and I could even preview my spot before buying. That was the best part. The all-in pricing is a game changer. No surprise fees at checkout. Plus, knowing my tickets are backed by the Game Time guarantee gives me complete peace of mind. Right? So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, we wrap this thing up here in a few minutes. Thanks for making Locked On Vandy your first listen. If you follow the show on social media at Locked On Vandy, you'll see the link tree has everything you need. So just click in the bio there on the social media page. But this is an interesting time for Vandy because being a top 40 program and staying there is the biggest key. And if Clark Lee can do that, you want to talk about the most drastic shift in narrative of all time. Like, he was dead in the water. He was favored. He was more favored to go become Marcus Freeman's defensive coordinator at Notre Dame than he was of coming back to Vandy. Things have changed now. So now he's got to, now in order for him to stay, now I think he's got to sustain, because now money's being involved, investments are being made. And so Vandy's starting to commit now. I don't know how scary that's going to be, but given this year with the limited roster they had and the tough schedule they had, they finished 7-6. So I think with another year of Diego Pavia, that's scary. But here's how the schedule shakes out. Now, you have Virginia Tech. Charleston Southern is what it is, FCS. But Virginia Tech finished 66th in the country. They had so much promise coming in to the season last season. They finished 66 in the final rankings, had a disappointing sputtering into the season. You travel to Blacksburg, not an easy place to play, but not an overly difficult team. I think they're a much different team with a much different feel than they were a year ago. I think maybe Brent Pry is they're kind of over him a little bit. So, you never know what you're going to get there. South Carolina at South Carolina, week 3. I love this because under Shane Beamer, I've always noticed this pattern with South Carolina, especially under Shane Beamer. That team at the end of the year versus that team at the beginning of the year are two totally different teams. Lenore Sellers is highly thought of in the college football world. I don't necessarily buy it. I don't think he's better than Pavia, because I think Pavia is more dynamic than Lenore Sellers. Lenore Sellers is probably a more elite runner than Pavia because he's more explosive. He's longer. He can make those home run runs. Pavia gets chunk runs and is a tough runner and can plow into the end zone and is probably one of the toughest guys in the league. But I think Lenore Sellers is a home run hitter as far as that goes. But here's the thing. Pavia is more of a quarterback than Lenore Sellers at this point. I don't know, without really studying South Carolina's schedule, I don't know the development plan for him as a passer or his capacity to develop as a passer. Not saying, and don't get this as me saying he needs to be he needs to pass from the pocket and he needs to stand in there and, make full field reads. That's not what I'm saying at all. You can be a really good passer and get the ball out of your hands. But Lenore Sellers is not a distributor. He's an athlete. He's a runner. He is a playmaker. Okay. And he's not a distributor. Pavia is a playmaker who has some distribution skills, but he's not a polished distributor as a quarterback. But he does have some. Lenore Sellers, yes, he's developing as a passer, and he needs to continue to develop as a passer. And this will be probably, like I said, without looking at their schedule, this will probably be their first real test of, okay, where are we at as an offense? Where are we at as a defense? We know they're going to be tough on defense, but they start slow. Georgia State, Utah State ranked in the bottom the bottom 20. So if you don't win those games, maybe you do need to look at firing Clark Lee. All right, Alabama, they finished, let's see, where did Alabama finish? Alabama finished 21. So you look at Alabama, they finished 21st. They got a new quarterback coming in, Kalen DeBoer. Not sold on him just yet as the Alabama head coach. He's a great head coach. Not sure of the fit. This will be the pivotal year for them, and him having a quarterback that fits his style more which I think is a little bit troublesome in today's college football because I think you need to be able to fit your style to your quarterback. I don't think he does a phenomenal job at that. Then you get LSU, which they added some pieces, but you just never know with that team. They're combustible, just like their head coach. Garrett Nussmeier, he's on a lot of lists, but it's a combustible team. You just don't know. Missouri, I think they're down. They took them to double overtime last year. I think they beat them this year. At Texas, they're a good team, but they lose a lot. What is Arch Manning going to bring to the table? What does this team, what does this Texas team have going for them? We don't know that yet. It'll be well defined by November 1st when they take that road trip to Austin. But again, this could be a team that if they fall apart early, this could be at the point of the season where Texas is like, okay, what are we doing? Auburn, not sold yet. Kentucky, they're getting worse. And Tennessee, at Tennessee, can Nico make the bounce back? Well, he'll have a full season to make his bounce back. I think he's going to be fine. He just lacked experience, and he had a lot of firsts as a starting quarterback last year. So I think that'll improve naturally. But if Vandy's game plan improves at all, I think they have a really good chance in this game. So needless to say, I'm not going to go through yet and go win-loss through the schedule, but I feel pretty good about this schedule. And I feel pretty good about this program and the direction it's heading. So that's weird to say, but I'm there. I'm kind of sold. I think this is going to be a special year. This is going to be the year that Vandy really earns that respect. They've got people's attention. Now they got to get their respect. This is that year. This is about respect now. This is about, hey, this logo on the side of our helmet, this V, which is right there, that V is going to mean something this year. What that is, who knows? I think it's going to mean that Vandy's a viable program. That's how I feel. Anyway, that's it. That's all I got. We'll see you back here next time. We'll get you ready for the weekend and a matchup against Kentucky on the hardwood. We'll get you ready for that and prime for that. And I'm sure we'll have more rants to go on about how football is this and that and the other. But we'll have a nice show for you guys, and we'll get you in the weekend. With that, anchor down. Peace. Behave yourselves. All the above.